Mayhem, take it away.
Back with a bang! Play the jingle, mate.
Yes, indeed. Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Football Booth podcast. My name is Fennan. I'm one of your main hosts. Alongside me, as always, my best buddy, my partner in crime, Mayhem. How you doing, my brother?
Doing good, mate.
Doing good, yeah.
Doing good. Happy to be back after unforeseen circumstances that had me playing a sound hospital.
He always gets a mention.
It does. It's the residual essence of a third host that never quite makes it to the actual stream.
Mate, I think his days are truly numbered. I think, you know what? They may well be up.
Yeah, I'm sure, less a host, more of just a special guest.
Celtic were back in action at Paradise. 2-1 win over Motherwell. And looking back at the highlights, easily could have been more.
Yeah.
Easily.
I think in the first half especially, we were decent. And weren't clinical enough. I think Kyogo is a difficult chance. I think he hits one, hits the post, comes back at him, and he throws his head in it and misses an open net. Callum McGregor's at the back stick. If he could do a bit better. Juranovic hits a bar via free kick. So there was plenty in there. I mean, even going into the second half, obviously, we get the goal again. And then, it's an absolute stonewall penalty. John Beaton, I think with three people watching, with yourself, Morg, there is, and I know we've spoken about refs loads, and I'd love to hear some people sort of tell me their worst refereeing or the worst ref they've ever seen, because John Beaton is the worst ref I have ever seen. And he's either atrociously bad or he's just a cheat. That's the only two. And I know he's a Rangers fan. We know he has a season ticket to Rangers. We know he's been seeing the Rangers bars. It was easy to call him a cheat, but there is the alternative where he's just absolutely diabolically shit. So it's either or, right? Either he is so bad at his job.
They're not the best either ors anyway, like.
He's that bad at his job. He should just be sacked, right? The SFA should call him in and just say, good luck in your future endeavours, but clearly refereeing isn't in your future because you're that fucking bad. Or he's just a cheat. I mean, the penalty, I don't know if you see it in the highlights, the penalty that he doesn't give, Leo Labada clips it in, and the guy's got his hand out here, and it hits his hand.
Stone wall. Absolute stone wall. I'm not familiar with John Beaton. You probably have numerous number of incidents he's been the culprit of.
It's brutal, man. It's utterly brutal how bad he is. But I mean, apart from that, we should have took our chances. Juranovic makes the mistake in the first half where he chests it back. I'm not convinced on Joe Hart and why he's come charging out in that position. I think it's kind of 50-50. So we give away a silly goal, but we should have been well out of sight. And in the end, Naria Tati plays a slack pass, and Callum McGregor has to take one for the team, and obviously gets sent off, and he'll miss the game against St Johnstone on the weekend here. But we were kind of the architects of our own downfall. But really, Motherwell did nothing, and we give them the chances that they got, and we weren't clinical enough. Joe Hart never really having to make any kind of real save. That we were fine, but defensively, I don't think we're ever going to be more than anything that's fine when you've got Welsh in there and Jens. They're a wee bit suspect. So the faster we can get Cameron Carter-Vickers back into that defence, and hopefully he'll be fit for Leipzig in the week here. So the rumours are, because he'll be a massive miss, and there's a huge level to jump up to go from Motherwell to Leipzig, and that defensive pairing of Jens and Welsh is one that would honestly give me nightmares if we were going to play Partick Thistle away, let alone Leipzig.
Well, I was just looking at Celtic's schedule for the next 2 weeks, and Celtic have 5 fixtures to play, with a couple of big tests, arguably the biggest one coming this week at home to Leipzig, and surely the boys are going to be really put through their paces in the next coming games.
But yeah, the Champions League group has decided here, really, are we playing for Europa League football, or do we give ourselves a chance of getting out of the group? If we can get a positive result against Leipzig at home, then really, we can focus. Hopefully Real Madrid do the business in all the other group games, then we can focus in on that game at home against Shakhtar, and that potentially gets us through the group and into the knockout stages of the Champions League. If we don't get a positive result against Leipzig, then we're battling, Shakhtar for the European football after Christmas. So these couple of games are going to be massive. I see no reason why we can't give Leipzig a good game. Rangers knocked them out of the Europa League last year. They haven't strengthened massively. I know they've brought back Timo Werner, and I think he scored a couple, I think, on the weekend there. He's certainly done all right, and but they've been hot and cold. This season.
I think the next best thing you turn to when it comes to Leipzig is that Christopher Nkunku, who had a breakout season with them last year, and thus far hasn't really repeated the same performances as he did for Leipzig last season. So, we said this when the group was drawn. In our heads, we were sold on the idea that Real Madrid would top the group and it would be a 3-horse race with Celtic, Leipzig and Shakhtar. Bit of your heart was telling you maybe, just maybe, we can cause an upset at Parkhead against Real Madrid. Obviously wasn't the outcome. And so now it is down to the case whether or not Celtic can repeat that level of performance as they did with Real Madrid, except with a winning outcome.
Yeah, it has to be that way. If we win against Leipzig at home and against Shakhtar at home, and Real Madrid win all their other games, that's enough to put us into the knockout stages. So a big focus now on our home games, trying to make obviously take full advantage of them, and try and get some of that fluidity and consistency back that was missing at times against Motherwell, that was missing against St Mirren, and we'll see where it takes us. But yeah, hopefully get Cameron Cardiff back into the team. McGregor will play the full 90 as he always does, but he does that knowing he'll have a rest going into the St Johnstone game, and then we can kick on and hopefully try and get a positive result, and then follow that up in the league as well. Because there's no point in getting these positive results in Europe if we're just going to capitulate in the league. And obviously the St Mirren, the absolute poor performance that come with St Mirren was off the back of the European game. So we need to get that balance right. Go and perform on the European stage and get positive results, but also know that it's important to then follow that up domestically and make sure that we're doing the business on a week-to-week basis there as well.
Yeah, who's going into your starting 11 in the Leipzig game this week?
So Hart in net, even though that still there's a few rumblings around him from some of the supporters. I think it's just madness. Hart in net, Juranovic at right back. Cameron Cardiff, if he's fit, goes in. For me, is that you flip a coin for Welsh and Jens, whoever trains better. I think he'll probably go.
That's quite a position where it's not really the case of a win-lose situation. I feel both individuals have had a really bright start to the season. Moritz Jens obviously being one of the newcomers and has come in, chipped in with a few goals, put in solid performances. It's not really quite, you could go one way or the other, couldn't you?
He was doing all right, and then he's gone on this wee bit of a run where he's just been a wee bit soft.
Okay.
And the St Mirren game he was bullied. That was often the criticism of Christopher Julian, that he's all right on the ball, bullied. Happened at St Mirren, but so I don't really think that the likes of Leipzig have got anyone that's really going to bully. I know that Nkunku's, he's got that sort of low centre of gravity. I would probably go Jens just because he's played with Cameron Carter a few more times and looked, solid. So I'd probably go with him just for that. Obviously, Greg Taylor in at left back, then McGregor at the base, Rio Hatate, Matt O'Reilly on the right, Haksabanovic on the left, Jota, and then up top, Kyogo. And Abada will probably feel a little bit unfortunate to be left out of that, but I'd go Haksabanovic on the right, bringing on Abada.
Haksabanovic, okay.
Yeah, look, he's got options like Maeda and that, but for me, Maeda isn't doing enough at the moment. He runs, but he's not doing anything. So, I think that starting 11, which I think was very close to the team that went out against Shakhtar Donetsk, gives us our best chance. That's definitely for me our best.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Barkar Starfelt, as soon as he's fit, he comes back in and partners Cameron Carter-Vickers.
And that's the big problem I have with Cardiff right now. 11 games in. We're dangling down in 18th place, not knowing whether or not we will take on a more experienced manager or whether we pursue with Mark Hudson. We just lack so much direction right now in terms of who is going to take over this rebuild. Are we going to stick with Mark Hudson, courtesy of him being part of that project that Steve Morison began? Or do we bring someone in who, again, like Morison did last season when Mick McCarthy got the boot, steady the ship and being the case of going again the following season?
I didn't watch the full Cardiff game, and I'm only obviously going off of extended highlights and then the bits and pieces that I've seen on Twitter. But you would expect when a new manager comes in, if they've got anything about them, if they've got anything about the players, you expect that new manager bounce. That didn't seem to happen, and it's only through a Callum Robinson header in the dying embers that stopped you losing to Burnley. And I know it's a brilliant thing on this pod to slag Burnley, but
I was gonna give them the honourable mention to you.
They're a solid Championship team, and you probably before the game probably been thinking I'll probably take a draw, but I think it's the manner of the draw. That room and what hides it. Certainly from when you're at the game or you're watching the game and you score in the 89th minute to draw, you're buzzing. You're absolutely buzzing with it. Oh, God, you've scored late, brilliant. When you go back and dissect that football match and you think, well, actually, we've not played well at all there, and we've snatched a point.
Yeah, when that equaliser went in, I was purely just buzzing for Callum Robinson. I'm over the moon for him to be finally off the mark and now scoring goals, and hopefully there's more to come. But again, it was a flat response from myself personally watching the game. The performance as a whole, it was a typical Cardiff performance as of this season, where we seem to now have a lot of possession, create a lot of opportunities, but at the end of the day we switch off in 2, maybe 3 scenarios and get punished for them instantly. And it just went to show the difference of where Burnley are right now and where we are right now. And I hate to say it because of your negative affection towards Burnley. It's, they're one of those teams like Norwich and like Sheffield United that are up in that top 6 bracket for a reason. But, back to the performance, it was a typical Cardiff City performance from this season, where we have developed the trait of maintaining possession but being caught out in our own half in certain areas where Burnley pushed high up and put us under pressure, couldn't deal with it, and it led to 2, maybe 3 good opportunities. And so I don't know what direction we're going in. It's hard to be excited as a City fan right now. It just feels like we've taken it week by week. We're surprised every week. Ultimately, I just want a brand new direction. I don't even care who comes in now. We talk about be careful what you wish for with ownership. I couldn't care less. If we get ownership in and we get a good idea that we're going to go down, I mean, I get that impression already as it is. I don't feel we'll stay up this season because we're going to slowly drop place by place to the point it's just too little too late, and we're stuck with a completely different squad. A young manager who has got minimal experience in him in Mark Hudson. Hate to say it, like I said, I love Mark Hudson. I don't feel sold on the idea that unless he encourages that old Cardiff culture of putting in 200% week in, week out, I don't see us getting any higher than where we are right now. And I feel it's time for Tan and the rest of his merry men to step aside. If he's not, if he is lenient enough to sell at whatever price he feels is that accommodates him. But, knowing Tan, he's ignorant, he's stubborn. He tried turning us into the Malaysian national team, really. At one point, changing the club's colours and the club crest. I can sit here and talk for hours about Vincent Tan, and I've wanted him gone for a long time, but I just know it's not really going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I think sometime in the future, it's probably maybe when we're veering out. That's something that we can sit down and really sort of dissect. Is Vincent Tan start and the timeline that as the instability and the friction that has been connected to Cardiff City for a long time. And I think one of the things that you can always say about Cardiff is one, when you went there was always a warmness towards you, no matter if you were on the away end or you were in the home end. There was all this warmness, there's always this feel good factor. There was always a clear purpose, whether it was under Warnock or whatever management company has got you and has taken you to that sort of the top end of the championship. But since the last relegation, so the last sort of whatever it is now, 5-6 years that you've been away, it's really has felt just so indecisive, so jump to rash decisions, and it seems an extremely difficult time. Steve Morison, right? Again, I can't imagine it was someone that inspired you to be like, wow, what a coup, how have we got him? But he comes in, clearly someone that cares about the football club, but clearly is taken on this massive rebuild that comes with massive expectation. Cardiff City, because of where they've been over the last decade, there is a massive expectation at that football club to be at least in the top 6 of the championship. Maybe not promoted every year, but certainly be battling for the playoffs. That is the absolute minimum that's expected of Cardiff City in Cardiff.
Yeah.
If you step outside, I think more rational minds now that look in and see that the squad probably isn't at that level. But certainly from a Cardiff City perspective, they expect to be playing at top 6 level. That's the expectation, to be battling for the playoffs year in, year out, through the parachute payments and the money that should have been invested back into the football club that haven't. It just hasn't been invested in the correct ways, and that's what's led to having to bring in such a volume of players. Last year leaning heavily on loans. This year, obviously, wanted to move away from that, and then to give the guy that was really searching the whole summer. We were talking about strikers, talking about how was it Collins up top? Is it that
who went to Derby? James Collins.
And then who's the other boy as well that's been fucking dreadful?
Probably Mark Harris. Only gets the nod because he's Welsh, really. But
who's the other forward? played against Bristol. Had a really good
Oh,
chance.
Max Waters, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that Max Waters, like just not not it. So we've been struggling without a striker. Finally get that day before deadline day. Get in Callum Robinson. You think, right, here we go. Here's the squad. This is it now till January. This is probably not going to strengthen too much in January because of the amount of volume. This is it now. This is the team that's going to drive forward. This is the team that's going to set the standard. 2 games later, the boss, the man that's brought everybody in, the man that's promised them playing time and told them how they're going to play, and you need to buy into my way of style, out the door, and they've just kind of stepped up someone that was coaching next to him. I never understand it when a club does that. Like, what changes? What honestly changes if you just bring Mark Hudson up at the back?
Seems to be an ongoing trend in our episodes as of late is managerial sackings. 2 weeks ago, we saw Steve Morison been given his marching orders by Vincent Tan and the board. He did come out and speak last week over his sacking from the club, and it was purely based on results, which was, in my opinion, the worst outcome I could have hoped for, which was a massive shame because he was behind this massive rebuild that we've undergone this summer, and to only be given 10 games to try and get this new look team to click and to be fluent was just a massive shame. And now, from what I'm seeing, and we'll get to the Burnley result in a moment, it seems like Mark Hudson is here to stay. He's been given the green light by the board to bring in a new coach, which is a big sign of Tan most likely going to be giving him the permanent role.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to sack someone, to really follow it up with just how poor a decision it is, let's just bring in someone that is going to energize nobody. It may do, internally within the camp, the players may love him, but I'm sitting here as a Celtic fan and someone that always looks out for Cardiff's results, obviously through our friendship and our connection, and I always want to see him do well. Been to the Cardiff City Stadium plenty of times, sat in the away end a few times, sat in the home end.
Nights out, yeah.
So it's a place that I hold with an infinity in my heart, and seeing the way that the club is run, it's just mind-boggling how they think that is sustainable. But this rash, snap changing of managers, the people that they bring in. Let's be honest, right? Obviously, we know what he is. We know what Malky Mackay is now. But when he was at Cardiff, it was a completely different proposition. And then obviously, what happened, and those messages were leaked, and he was rightfully told he needed to step down. But from then, you really struggle to put your finger on a good recruitment for manager. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that's come in, Neil Harris that's come in, Mick McCarthy that's come in. Like all these kind of people.
I mean, I'm thinking back to the likes of Russell Slade, Paul Trollope,
it's such. There hasn't really been. I know that the fellow that you wanted, is it Nathan Jones? You wanted from Luton. Did I hear that he went to Stoke?
Did he go to Stoke? No, that was Alex Neil. Alex Neil went to Stoke. No, Nathan Jones is still at Luton.
Where did I hear his name? Is he still at Luton? Definitely.
He's definitely still at Luton.
What did I hear?
No, I'm pretty sure it was Alex Neil that ended up at Stoke because he went from Blackpool, didn't he? Which was a very bizarre. No, he went from Sunderland.
He went from Sunderland.
Sunderland. Sorry,
sorry. I thought that I'd heard that Nathan Jones had gone somewhere. Obviously not. But there's that managerial merry-go-round at the moment, isn't there? That's spinning.
There's a few faces that have come available. Most recently today, Chris Wilder been let go by Borough. Rob Edwards, former Watford manager, is available. I mean, I'm not really familiar with Rob Edwards and his work at Watford. I mean, I know he took over.
Watford are another fucking absolute tumour of a club. I mean, just fucking rancid. I haven't even got words for him. Yeah, I mean,
well, this is a first, isn't it?
The owners, like, it's ridiculous. Like you bring in they bring him in for Forest Green. There's all this talk about how he needs time to set up his system and develop people. 10 games and he's sacked. Why did you hire someone that takes time to implement? Why didn't you just go with Slaven Bilic from the start? Slaven Bilic has been sitting at home with his fucking feet up since the summer. It's hardly like he was in a job. Right, so he whatever in China and come back. He hasn't been in a job for a fucking while, so you could have put Slaven in from the start if that was the man that you wanted.
And they brought Slaven in instantly as well.
Yeah. So
instantly, whereas Cardiff have really pondered on whether to stick with Mark Hudson. Don't get me wrong, Mark Hudson has a special place in my heart. He was brilliant as a player, as a leader of men at the club. Was one that really put in 110%. Whenever he played, and I adore Mark Hudson. However, we're talking from a club perspective in terms of where do we want to go next? Are we, because the impression I'm getting right now from Vincent Tan and the board, along with the club itself, is that we've stagnated.
There's no direction, man. There's absolutely no direction, and for me, this is a problem with football clubs, right? And it isn't just Cardiff, and it isn't just Watford. It's now the consensus. You Man United fans used to brag that they'd look at and say to other clubs, in the time that we've had one manager, and you've had 6 or whatever, bragging to Chelsea or whoever, and they're as bad now as anybody. Gary Neville jumps up on Monday Night Football and tells you how managers need time and they need stability. Salford are going on to their fucking 4th manager or whatever it is in 5 seasons. So even these fucking people that are preaching we need stability, they're not showing it with their own football clubs. Gary Neville and Nicky Butt and Ryan Giggs. I mean, Ryan Giggs probably battering whichever female staff member he comes across when Salford lose, but for the rest of them, like, just fucking saying, stability's needed, blah, 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 and then they're booting, a guy out because Salford, by the way, he's managing fucking Salford, right? You're managing a football club that's in between, Man United, Man City, and Liverpool. You're in League 2. Be fucking happy where you are. Let's make no bones about it. Fucking FC United of Manchester down the road are probably getting as big a crowds as you, right? Because you're in fucking Salford. So what's your aspirations?
And they took over. They took over Salford when they were in a much worse, obscure position, like down in the 5th, 6th tier of football, and they've taken them up all the way to League 2.
Yeah, the job's been fantastic, but you have to realise that this isn't Football Manager. It's certainly not fucking FIFA. You're living in the real world. You don't just bust through these leagues, right? There is. You're not always going to get the Adam Rooney effect where you say, come down and he bangs in 30 goals in the National League. You're not always going to get that kind of play. You're not always going to be able to poach a Championship player to come down because you're fucking Gary Neville. And that shit's changing. There's no stability through any form of the football structure. There's plenty of people that are allowed to manage and own football clubs that are not fit for purpose. One of them clearly on display at Watford, one of them clearly on display at Cardiff. And I'm sure if we spoke to many people in the Football League, they would have real concerns about the people that are running their football club. Because there's not enough footballing people, and you see it from the top down, from the absolute top down. You look at Man United and the Glazers and the way they're taking dividends out the clubs. No, not enough footballing people there. You look at Arsenal; they're in a good spot at the moment, but you reverse back 12 months. The lack of actual fucking footballing people at the football club was a real concern. Chelsea, don't get me started, right? Tottenham, what kind of footballing people do Tottenham have? A businessman. wanted to build a pretty big, a pretty stadium, and wants Champions League football to pay off the stadium. Don't give a shit about anything else. That's why Tottenham haven't won a cup since fucking I was in fucking secondary school. Like, and it just keeps going down, down, down. Wolves as well. Wolves have brought in this new manager. This is how we want to play. They played spectacularly at Tottenham, got a poor result. Pep Guardiola was singing their praises, played really well against Liverpool. Didn't get the result. Yes, they got Erling Haaland, but a few weeks ago, and then he's been sacked.
Like I was saying, we've mentioned names over the past couple of weeks, over the past few episodes, where we've mentioned the likes of Brendan Rodgers being a big one. There's been Steven Gerrard thrown into that hat. You've had David Moyes thrown into that hat. Frank Lampard, maybe at one point. And it's just names that crop up where they go on just a short, poor run of form, and they're given their marching orders. Bruno Lage being the most recent. And big talk around Klopp at the moment because Liverpool aren't having a great time.
Yeah. It's just mind-boggling, really. I think Klopp's in real trouble, if I'm honest. Yeah,
he's in big trouble.
I haven't looked at the table, but I know what we now 10 games in, or fast approaching that 10-game mark, and they're well off it. Well off it. It looks like obviously, Arsenal got a really, really positive result on the weekend for them, and they're going strong, but you just feel like, City just go up through the gears and they're too good for anybody. And obviously, I think Liverpool's two next games are City and Arsenal, so Liverpool could be in a real dire position.
Yeah.
And if they don't get positive results out of those games, how much leeway do you give Klopp? I know there was whispers. I remember there was whispers around Klopp last season when they weren't doing so well. And then there was a wee time when, maybe in the season before, so it may not have been last season or the season before, or maybe there was whispers. I remember last season there was whispers about Pep when City were down in 8th. There was wee whispers about, whether he had kind of run out of his Pepness. So it'll be interesting to see how Liverpool come back, because this Liverpool team has been, the foundation of their success has been built on, Alisson, Virgil van Dijk, solid, and then allow the front players to go and play. And they're just leaking goals, like from that dodgy penalty against Fulham with Mitrovic, when Van Dijk gets himself all turned up, to Trossard turning up and scoring a hat-trick at Anfield. It's all a bit weird. I think I originally had them in my top 4 prediction. They do well to get top 4. Like that's the level of this Premier League. This season, Tottenham playing ugly but winning games. You've got Arsenal, playing some of the best football they've played in years. City that are inevitable, and then you've got Graham Potter in at Chelsea. Obviously, he got his first win, and I think they'll kick on there. United, although a difficult weekend for them, they've been in a real good spot. So there's some real good teams in this league, and Liverpool it's got to click soon, or otherwise that gap will be almost unassailable. Teams in this day and age don't drop a whole load of points. Yeah. Unless they're playing each other, that big 6 don't drop a whole load of points.
Yeah, and that's the league action from this past weekend. I feel the best place to start with this is the exquisite masterclass Man City put on yesterday against Man United. 6-3 to the blue side of Manchester.
Yeah, mate, they're just inevitable, aren't they? Erling Haaland, Foden bags a hat-trick. Who can stop them? I can't see a team.
I don't think it's even the case of United being poor. Man City were just that good.
Yeah, United went in with a decent bit of form about them, but yeah, look, they'll have blips, where they get poor results. Of course, they will across the season, but I can't see a team, even Arsenal with this new discovered form. I just can't see a team that is going to be consistent enough to get anywhere near them. I think they win the league at a canter. My guess now would be a good 15, 17 points clear.
this is a team that is really going to dominate the Premier League for the next few years.
Look, they're the best players, there's the best manager, they play the best football. Unless you're a unless you're a United fan, just sit back and enjoy it. Arsenal may have a really good season this year. This is their Leicester moment, but Leicester wasn't coming up against this City. And look, they've now got to go and deliver on a European stage, and there's no point in being as dominant here domestically if you don't then go and replicate and go and get the big cup. And they're certainly more than capable of that. But this team is scary, absolutely scary, that they can just do everything.
Yeah, and you're completely right in terms of competing in the European competitions, because otherwise you see Man City as the English PSG, and again PSG who dominate Liga 1 season in, season out, apart from that odd year when Lille won it. This is City's best opportunity of winning silverware at the highest level.
Yeah, they have to go and validate this team with the Champions League. They have to do that. I think they will. I think it's just something different about them this year. I just think that they will be more reserved in the moments that they need to be, and breathtaking in attack. And I think it would have to be. I know they collapsed in Madrid last year, but I can't see that. I don't know why. I don't know what's changed. I'm not quite sure, because it's not a Kanji coming in isn't the catalyst for it. You know what I mean? But it's just something different about the team that you watch them, and there's something different. You give this team a 1-0 lead, and that'd be that. I don't think they would get involved in the turmoil of an Atletico Madrid. I don't think they would get involved in any of that, although they tried to stay out of it a lot last year. That they got dragged down for a lot of it. I just think that they are the best team in the world. What they need to go and do now
hands down
is go and validate that by winning the Champions League.
Absolutely.
And I think there was a bit of commentary on Mowbray. I don't know if you heard that. I have heard
it. I know exactly what piece of commentary you're talking about. I watched it earlier. Hilarious.
Alex Ferguson saying that City could never go into a derby in his lifetime as the favourites. Now it's every time. It's true.
It's spot on. It's nail on the head.
United fans leaving at half time. You know what I mean? It's they're something else. Like.
You can hardly blame them. The damage was completely done in that first 45 minutes. And despite a late brace and a moment of excellence from Anthony, United didn't look anywhere close to competing with them.
No, miles off it, mate. Miles and miles off it.
Massively off of it. And then going from one team that's doing well in the Premier League right now and to another, Arsenal had the North London derby this past Saturday, ran out 3-1 winners. Another convincing performance. We've spoken a lot about Arsenal, and a lot behind their form has been based around that they haven't come up against the big teams yet. Of course, they had United earlier in the season where they lost 3-1, but didn't really seem like a scoreline that justified their performance. I thought it was really harsh on them. But then put those doubts to bed for the time being with a massive, massive derby win over Spurs.
Yeah, look, they, since in the highlights, they look good value for the win. I think I'm a controversial opinion. I don't think the Emerson Royal tackle is a red card. I think you set the precedent for that, and they set it in a game earlier on in the season where I can't remember exactly what game it was, but he caught the top of his boot. It's a really innocuous challenge. He catches him in a bad place, and it's a sore one of 100% for the player, but there's no velocity in the tackle. There's no. I don't think he's endangering the player. He's on one leg. He's overreached. He's mistimed, and because he's caught him, the ref has brandished a red card. And I just think that it's this freeze frame generation, slow it down ridiculousness that we're in that makes it look like a horror tackle. When you watch it in real time, it's actually innocuous, and it happens 1,000 times on a Saturday and a Sunday across amateur football every weekend. If you start sending people off for that kind of stuff, then you're just going to get into a culture where we don't tackle.
Always given a red. I haven't seen the red card yet.
Look, if you slow it down and you do a horrible freeze frame on it, there will be absolutely no defending it. But watching it, in real time, and watching it, I think a yellow card. Look, he would have been berated because, like I said, we live in this freeze frame, slow down generation, and when you slow it down, it looks really, really bad because it looks more deliberate than it actually is. I think it's one of those ones. Even if he flashes a yellow, VAR probably tell him to go look at it and he upgrades it, so he couldn't win. You know what I mean? He probably would have been sent off anyway. But I just don't feel, for me, watching it as a complete neutral. I know obviously my brother's a big Tottenham fan, but as a complete neutral, it seemed a really harsh red card, but one that they'll all stand by and say is correct because of how he's caught him. But for me, it seemed really innocuous, and because of the precedent they had set in other games this season where they hadn't sent people off for, in my opinion, worse tackles, it just all seemed a little bit strange.
I feel that's the case of a lot of challenges where you're in two minds whether it is a yellow or a red, and you slow every challenge down, and it's always the case that, okay, it does look bad when it's slowed down. Because looking at this challenge here,
what I would argue is if you, I don't know, did you see the one that your man got sent off for on Jack Grealish a couple of weeks ago, the Wolves tackle?
Oh, maybe.
Right, so taking them out of everything and putting it down on paper, they've been given the same punishment. They've both been sent off. And when you look at Emerson Royale's tackle, and then you look at his tackle, and you compare the two, are they both deserving of the same punishment? One, in my opinion, is an absolute stonewall red card, and the other one is a mistimed tackle where he's caught him poorly.
Yeah, and not in a threatening area of the field either. Okay, I've just seen the Wolves one. That's a red for me.
The velocity he's going in at, the boots up, the velocity that he's hitting Jack Grealish. He ends up hitting Jack Grealish. I think he's basically on the top of his thigh towards his stomach. The sheer velocity of that means that you've mistimed that, you've caught him, studs in really bad, and you're following through in that action. Red card, you're endangering the player.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Royale one hits those marks. What they will say is that his studs are showing and he catches him on the thigh area and that warrants it. So
absolutely agree. I don't feel it's a red card for Emerson Royale. Like you said, you slow it down. Yeah, it does look bad. Maybe you do overturn temporary caution, and then you go to the monitor, you slow it down, it looks worse than what it was briefly, and you overturn it.
But look, Arsenal were good value for the only real mistake they made was obviously Gabriel chopping down Richarlison, and Kane puts away the penalty. Ramsdale makes a really good save from Richarlison as well. I think it's at 0-0 at that point. He makes a really smart save from him, otherwise the game could have been a wee bit different. But yeah, Arsenal just were a little bit too big, too powerful, too quick, and got it done. Still don't sit right with me that Thomas Partey's on the field, but again, that kind of stuff is off-field related stuff. But overall, from a footballing point, Arsenal were the better team and deserved the 3 points. And and wrapped them up.
Yeah. Do you feel that a lot of this current success from Arsenal has been courtesy of the board giving Arteta time and actually trusting the process as to where he wants to take the club? Because he has been under scrutiny multiple times. I know it seems to be the typical mentality of Arsenal in recent years after, even when Wenger was in charge, when they were calling for his head for multiple years on end. We're associated with people that shared those same thoughts, and seeing Arsenal now, before they took in Arteta and he took over, won an FA Cup, and then it was the case of not achieving top four in his first season. I don't think he did it in his second season, but now, with the backing he's got and where he's now taken Arsenal, is it the case of pursuing with a manager's philosophy who hasn't got that experience but is given the right time and managed to really elevate them?
I think there's absolutely no doubt that giving a manager time and building consistency is good for a football club. Arteta, without a shadow of a doubt, has underperformed. He's been there for 3 full seasons.
Yeah.
And for me, growing up watching the Arsenal that I watched, for me, he's underperformed in all 3 of those seasons. If you don't finish in the top 4 of Arsenal Football Club, I know they haven't done for a little while, under multiple managers, Emre, and then he's come in, so it isn't all him. But if you don't finish, for me, in the top 4, then you've had a poor season. And if you finish outside of Europe altogether, it's a horrendous season. So not only has he had 2 horrendous seasons where he's finished 7th and 8th, he's also had a poor season for me last year, because they had two-thirds a really good season and then horrific last third that's ended up ultimately making it to be a really poor season, because they finished 5th and they play Europa League football, which again, I think the absolute bare minimum for Arsenal should be Champions League. What's happened is Arsenal fans have been so shit for so long, they're calling finishing 5th good. But that's how crushed their expectations are. They think 5th Thursday night football is good. Sorry, I didn't realise that you wore fucking white and blue and sung "Come on, you Spurs." Like, where are you? Why is your fucking? Where's your values? Why are they in the bin? What's going on? So for me, he's had 2 horrific seasons and he's had a poor season, and he's stayed in the job. Very luckily, because Arsenal Football Club is a massive football club, a huge institution in England, and there'll be plenty of people that would be lining up to take that job without a shadow of a doubt, that would leave their current position and walk in. I know Potter's just gone to Chelsea, but he could have been someone that could easily have transitioned in there, and there's multiple people in the Premier League that could have done that as well. So, and people that are out of work. So he's a lucky man to keep his job, but you can't get away from the fact that he's recruited really, really well. Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, obviously, bringing Saliba back into the team was almost as a new signing.
Oh, it was revolutionary bringing Saliba back into the side after spending 27 odd million on him at first and then loaning him out to Liga 1 for 2 seasons, and he's come in, like you said, like a new signing, and has been an absolute revelation in a department where Arsenal have looked so weak for many, many years.
Yeah, and then you factor in Odegaard and Ramsdale. Odegaard, we knew the pedigree he had, but he hadn't really performed, so that felt like a risk when they were paying the money. Real Madrid were happy to let him go. And Ramsdale, just whatever he does in football, he gets relegated. Whether it's Bournemouth, Sheffield United, now England, he just gets relegated. So these were risks, and
yeah, they were.
And he's come through now, and they're top of the league, or in and around top of the league. I don't know if City went back top or what the crack is, but I think they're top of the league. Looking forward to whoever comes next, whether it's Liverpool or whoever they've got. But I think we spoke about October being a defining month, and then obviously they build into December and playing Chelsea before the World Cup kicks off. So we'll see more of Arsenal, Tottenham haven't had a particularly great record at the Emirates over the years, so I think it wasn't a massive surprise that they went there and capitulated. A wee bit more of a surprise they done it under Conte, because that's not the stuff that they've been doing as of late, but not a massive surprise that they've gone there and capitulated. For me, I think Spurs will still be fine. I think they finished top four, and that last, I think, it will now be City, Arsenal, Spurs, and then, a real dogfight for the last place. You'll have Chelsea, you'll have Liverpool that I'm sure will come back with some kind of resurgence. You'll have Man United, and at the same time, we're now 10, 11 games in. You can't discount the credit that after going to Anfield and drawing 3-3, that Brighton have a real chance at having a crack at some form of European football here. Whether it be maybe ending up in the Conference League or something. They've started fantastically, and they've continued that on, and I'd love to see. I think it'd be a great story for them to end up with some kind of European football next year.
Yeah, it's pretty great to see that Brighton have, and of course, after the recruitment of Roberto De Zerbi, off to a great start. 3-3 draw at Anfield. Surely you got to put Brighton's name in the hat, who is in that dogfight for European spots. You'd fancy them over Liverpool right now, surely.
Yeah, like I said, I think Liverpool will have a resurgence. I've no doubt of that.
Yeah.
It'll click at some point. They've been a fantastic team for the past 4 or 5 years. Really, the only team that's been able to keep pace with City. So I've absolutely no doubts that it'll click at some point for them. And at some point, Brighton will probably have a spell of games that unravels for them. But yeah, it's just a great story at the moment.
Really is, and just continuing where they left off when Potter departed. Another big team as well, maybe to throw into the hat. Newcastle, 4-1 win away from home against Fulham.
Yeah, look, I really like Newcastle. They're a big football club with a real passionate support. They've all the foundations there of a big football club. I can remember them playing in the Champions League, with the likes of, obviously Shearer and
Laurent Robert,
Laurent Robert,
Shemaine
Sheenus, and Nobby Solano, Shay Given, like the real characters, real big players, and special nights at St James's Park. So I can't wait to see them back in that at that level, and I'm sure the money that they have, that it won't be too long before we see them really fighting for top four. And it'll be great to see, and because they're already starting to go up to that upper echelon of signings, So they were bringing in the likes of that Bruno
Gomeros and Kieran Trippier being a big revelation to the side as of late, and of course
Trippier and Isaac for me are huge
massive signings, and it kind of makes you a little bit puzzled as to why teams like Chelsea or maybe Arsenal. I mean, I don't even know why Spurs let Trippier go in the first place. I didn't know if it was the case he wanted to go, but
for me, I've had this argument many times with Cam, my brother. I think Trippier is the best right back
that England have. 100%. And
he thinks Trent Alexander-Arnold.
No, he does not.
He does.
We have to get back on here.
He baffles me completely, but I think I'm buzzing that they play this stupid system where he doesn't get in, because for me, he's the best right back defensively, and he's as good going forward, and that makes him overall best right back. Like, Trent Alexander can't defend. Al Walker just has recovery pace, although for England he plays centre back. Reece James is shit at going forward. So, for me, Trippier is the outstanding one, and that's a massive signing for was a massive signing for Newcastle. He's been brilliant there since he's got in. Isaac, I'm sure, will do well. I know he's picked up a knock here on international break, so I'm sure it'll mould him really good on his debut. So yeah, I think that Newcastle, they've already sort of stepped up onto the upper echelon, and they'll continue to do that with the money that they can spend. I'm really amazed that they didn't get Maddison over the line, if I'm honest, because obviously Leicester were just absolutely nailed down. They weren't selling him because the money they have. I thought that they would get that done, but I think that they'll be a real force that before too long.
I'll tell you what, I mean, we were talking about October being a very important month for a lot of the big sides in the Premier League. Looking at the fixtures next weekend, we've got a few tasty ones to look forward to. Brighton Spurs being the late kickoff on the Saturday. Chelsea take on Wolves. Again, with Wolves going to be under new management, we don't really know what sort of reaction we'll get from Wolves, and if Chelsea can continue to do well as they, from the previous weekend against Palace, courtesy of a Conor Gallagher last-minute winner.
Sometimes, football's as if it's written in it beforehand, Conor Gallagher going back, scoring. I don't know if he celebrated or, I haven't
seen the celebration, but
yeah, that kind of stuff is just, if you were writing it down as the old remember the comic in the Sun newspaper. I can't remember what the team was, but Roy Rovers, I think it was, or something. But that's the kind of storyline that would be there. The returning player from last year, his old club, bags in the 91st minute. Just sometimes football's a strange old game.
Like FIFA, scripted shit. And then, of course, on the Sunday that you mentioned, it is Liverpool-Arsenal. Another late kickoff. Not the latest kickoff, though, because for whatever reason, Everton play United at 7 o'clock English time. What a very...
On Sunday?
Yeah, on a Sunday. That's really bizarre. I don't know if that has something to do with the European football midweek. That's really strange. That is really strange. But Arsenal-Liverpool have the 4:30 kickoff, which would usually be the late kickoff on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
A big game for Liverpool, and Arsenal in the best form that we've seen in many seasons. You'd really put your money on Arsenal to pile on the misery for Klopp and Liverpool at the moment.
You'd expect it, but Anfield does things to Arsenal.
It's at the Emirates. May I know?
Is
it's
it?
at the Emirates, yeah.
Oh, that changes things. And I thought with them playing Spurs at the Emirates, it would have been...
You're just thinking now, they'll dick on them.
There's just places where Arsenal crumble. Right? One of them is Old Trafford. One of them is
Anfield.
The Emirates. The other one's the Etihad. I would have thought that Liverpool, but the Emirates is a different. I know Liverpool have certainly got the upper hand on them a few times recently. But look, good time to play Liverpool. That old cliche. We'll see. Yeah, for me, Arsenal go in as favourites for the game.
We're going to go into our final segment now, which is the Football Booth Fantasy Football League. And here are the current standings, even after the Forest-Leicester game. I, in fact, do have 2 Forest players in my team, hoping that they would pick up a couple of points to push me back up the table. However, courtesy of Leicester's 4-0 win over Forest, that managed to leave Nico Williams on -1 point and Brennan Johnson on 2 points, which has put me in 6th place in the table out of 11 teams. So as it stands, Joe has now gone top with 514 points. Liam down in second, 512. So just a 2-point gap there.
Mm-hmm.
Third place is our ever so present third host Sam Foster with 480 points. Fourth place is in fact a newcomer to the Fantasy Football League. He joined a couple of days ago. He was in one of mine and Stu's streams and wanted to join, and I didn't realise that it does in fact carry over points. Instead of starting from 0, they do carry the points over from another league they're in. And so they're fourth with 475 points. Fifth is Mike with 470 points. Sixth is me, as I mentioned, 467 points. And then seventh is you, Joel, on 447 points.
Cam is catching up fast.
Cam is now 8th. He was bottom for the first few weeks and has managed to climb up the table. Got a big game week 9 score of 88 points. Who on earth did he have in his team? So he had Haaland as captain. Of course he did. De Bruyne, Luis Diaz, Gabby He's got a front line of Haaland, Jesus, and Harry Kane.
I mean, if he had gone with Ward and gone instead of Alisson, he could have been into the 90s. Crazy week. He's had a few and all. He's had a few because he was a long way off the pace, and now he's only 9 behind me, which is a bit nervy because I don't really want that little shit catching up with me.
No. We want to see him in an Arsenal kit by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean,
just want to see it.
The free transfer rolls back around.
Who have you gone with?
I'm not quite sure because I know that Isaac is struggling. I did bring in Son, and he did absolute fuck all again. So I'm tempted. The temptation here is to shuffle and bring in Kane to have the same front line as Cam, that Jesus, Haaland, and Kane front 3, and move Son out and then bring in someone.
Yeah. Well, I've in fact got 2 free transfers. I used one of them, and so I'd given Ivan Perisic the boot, and to replace him, Kieran Trippier. I thought it was a no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer.
I've got Trips in my team.
You got Trips in as well, haven't you? Yeah.
It's been solid.
And still undecided on what other transfer I can make. Maybe someone in the midfield, but then I was checking earlier and there really wasn't anyone that stood out. I was tempted to ship out Rashford, but I didn't want to feel like I was being too rash, no pun intended, as I only put him in I think 3 weeks ago, and so he missed out that first week when I put him in through injury, and then of course they just had the City game, and pretty much like with everyone else in the United side, didn't have a big impact bar Martial. And so yeah, still have a free transfer to make. I don't think there will be any more changes from myself this week. Be intrigued to know who you use your free transfer on, Joel.
Yeah, like I think I'm gonna do. Fuck it, we'll do it -4. Yep, and then I think it will be that, and then so Kane in. And he can be vice captain, and Haaland, because I was the only fucking idiot stupid enough not to have Haaland as captain this week.
I've seen a few other people in the league that didn't make him captain, and blows my mind how they missed that trick. Absolutely blows my mind. There's no one else really you can put as captain apart from Haaland, because the guy is just on a different level right now.
I put Diaz because Liverpool are at home to Brighton, and I expected City to have a tougher game against United. So I thought this was a good way to. Everyone would back Haaland, and this was a good way to try and claw some points back. Instead, it just meant that I lost points. Yeah. So Haaland is at home to Southampton, captain Naldon, and the team at the moment it's obviously -4. So the first 4 points in the bin, but Pope in goal, and then we've got Cancelo, Trippier, Walker. Though Walker's, there's a risk of him not playing, so there is the ability to bring in Zinchenko, but again, with them playing Liverpool, don't know. There is also the option to bring in Fofana, because obviously they're at home to Wolves, and Wolves aren't all that free scoring, so that may be an option depending on what Walker's looking like.
Yeah.
I have a midfield of Eriksen, Martinelli, Luis Diaz, and Trossard. He was the other one that I brought in there.
Trossard is in.
Off the back of his hat-trick, and he has been good for Brighton. They're at home to Tottenham.
You see Mike had Trossard in this team already. Going into that Liverpool game, I mean, what a call that was from Mike.
And then, Jesus, Haaland, and Kane up top. So, this is your free tip to put Son in, because he'll undoubtedly do something now that I've taken him out.
Well, I think I suffered the same fate as you did. Had him in for the first couple of weeks, took him out, bangs in a hat-trick against Leicester, and then you go to put him back in, and then nothing comes of it. So I don't know if I will take up the option of fitting Son back into the team. I might just stick with Rashford for now, just to see if he can pick up again against Everton on Sunday. Mayhem, pleasure as always. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you everyone that tuned in. You can find all the episodes of the Football Booth podcast over on audio platforms, Spotify, Audible. You can also catch the Twitch VODs over on the YouTube channel at the Football Booth. Make sure to follow us on Twitter to keep yourself up to date with upcoming content. Until then, ladies and gents, thank you very much for all tuning in, and we'll see you all next Monday. Good night and Nostar.